And just like that, season 3, episode 5, this one was called Your Friends and Neighbors. So that shares in common the name of John Hamm's show over on Apple. And we all know how we feel about John Hamm at the Nerve. Okay. So, okay, this thing's coming apart like a piñata, like a cheap piñata. We open with a montage of Sarah Jessica Parker as Carrie. And remember, we are in a body horror movie where these two have fused. Carrie is SJP and SJP is Carrie. And we are a sprightly fashionista who is 900 years old with the soul of a 14-year-old. The energy, the verve. We are stomping through our new Gramercy Park townhouse mansion with pristine wooden flooring in spike heels, in a montage of spike heels, like we're stomping around like a horse that is pulling a New York City carriage full of tourists in the heat, okay? Now we see this montage, and I'm going to say there's a key thing to note here, which is that we only see the change of clothes and heels from about the calf down, which says to me that they used a body double for these multiple shots, because Sarah Jessica Parker is like 60 or 61. And here's what happens as women. I will never forget reading about this. This was back when magazines really mattered. So we're talking like a good 20 years ago at least. But there was this it was in a fashion magazine, and there was this relatively new procedure that New York City women who had money were indulging in, because as you age, what happens is women lose fat in the balls and the heels of their feet. And so bone is closer to the bottom of the shoe, like the last of the shoe, right? That inside. So heels become extremely painful to wear. And these women were getting like filler injected in the balls of their feet and the heels so that they could have more padding, so they could wear heels with less pain. Okay. So Sarah Jessica Parker at the age of 61, stomping around in heels indoors is on its face ridiculous. Again, I'm a prosecutor, right? On its face, prima facie. Is that how you say it? Anyway, now also hygiene in New York City. You know what you're tramping in the house on any given day? You actually do not. You see rats, you see human sewage waste in the street because homeless people are relieving themselves wherever they care to. Garbage is like seeping out of whatever container, so that's what you know you're dragging in. Most New Yorkers, the minute they get home, you may as well be in Kyoto. You are taking your shoes off. Also, her character had a hip replacement 2 seasons ago. So, and then is she actually going to really stomp around in heels, which are going to put like divots in her brand new wood floors? I think not. Okay, now, this is one of the most common complaints New York City residents have when it comes to quality of living: noise. Noise is like top 2. And if you have a neighbor who is thoughtlessly stomping around upstairs, and trust me, I moved out of a really nice loft apartment because I had a neighbor who was committed to just running everybody who lived below them out. You know, they got off on making as much noise as possible and interrupting sleep and so it is a thing. It is a thing. And this neighbor who also he says, I'm a writer, just like you, okay? I can't work. You're upstairs stomping around like a crazy person in your heels. Would you just do me a favor and take them off? And Carrie is outraged by this request. This is a request that any decent person would say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What was I thinking? Of course, no skin off my back. I'll take off my heels. And by the way, the Carrie of Sex and the City was always like showing off her $100 pedicure, walking around her apartment barefoot on the balls of her feet like a ballerina. I mean, again, we're just a dainty like jewel box ballerina spinning around and around, right? So then she goes to lunch with Miranda and 2 of the new cast members. And again, it's all bleeding into each other, what's going on off the screen and what's going on the screen. And she's complaining about this guy, and they're all sympathizing with Carrie instead of being like, you're being a total asshole. You are in the wrong. And Miranda empathizes, and she says, I'm having a similar problem with my neighbor. And Carrie literally stops her dead and says, I quote, what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with me? Miranda is Gail, Carrie is Oprah, and Miranda is there to tie the shoelaces on the running sneaker, okay? Now, a side note, Miranda keeps saying she's in an Airbnb, and this go, this goes to the sloppiness in the writer's room and the amount of writers who are not from New York, who have never lived in New York for a substantial amount of time, who have never read about New York, who don't subscribe or read online a New York City newspaper like the Post. Airbnb is outlawed in New York City. It is extremely difficult to get around these laws. New Yorkers don't want Airbnb. So, okay, anyway. Miranda opens, she's got a next door neighbor blasting heavy metal. Again, this is really common noise and music. And the guy next door finally opens the door and he's naked and he's got a meat cleaver and he says, I'm going to hack you up if you complain once more. And, Miranda's sort of telling Carrie this on the phone, and Carrie's like, yeah, I wish I could help. Carrie's living in an empty, ginormous, multi-million-dollar mansion. Miranda could have her own wing. Yeah, I wish I could help. Oh yeah, one of my new best friends is like a real estate broker. She's a powerhouse. I don't like to mix business and pleasure, business and friendship, even though in Sex and the City, writers, go look at that Bible. Carrie went over to Charlotte's house and bullied her into Charlotte giving Carrie her engagement ring so Carrie could put down money to buy her apartment, which money she didn't have because she spent it all on clothes, Cosmos, and taxis. Oh, and shoes, okay? Anyway, she finally relents and lets Miranda move in, and then we are treated to... This is also Cynthia Nixon ruining this show because, as we know, Cynthia Nixon said it was a condition of her return that she could turn Miranda into Cynthia. Again, we are in a multi-character body horror movie for no good reason. As a guest in this otherwise insufferable woman's house, Miranda gets up in the middle of the night. Carrie gets up in the middle of the night, runs into her in the hallway, and Cynthia Nixon, it's full frontal nudity. I don't know why Cynthia Nixon would have wanted to do this. If you're watching the show, this is a point where I'm like, if you're listening, you really saved yourself. We're showing an image with the black bars. This is graphic, but it's Cynthia Nixon looking painfully unattractive. It's a very Lena Dunham HBO move, right? Like, we all want to see nice things, and these ladies are like, not so fast, sisters. We're going to show you the real deal that's going on here. We're going to see Cynthia Nixon's sagging belly and her shapeless form and her pained expression and these black socks that she's wearing, these like elderly man's black socks that like cut her off mid-calf. Dear Lord. Now, Seema, who's one of our new multi-ethnic friends, because we've gone woke on, and just like that, we realized that New York City is in fact a melting pot. And so we've brought in some characters of color. Seema is a wealthy, seemingly, ostensibly powerful powerhouse broker. And she has rejected what seemed like fairly rational requests to stay on at her brokerage firm, or at least just stick around till you get an off-ramp going. But no, she's quit, she's left, and she's got to go get a loan because apparently she really doesn't have any money, right? So she goes to get a bank loan, and guess who she's talking to? This is intentional casting. It's the same bank teller that Carrie went to go see when she was having to buy her apartment and she didn't have the money, and she's sitting there and she has to be told, hey lady, you have only $2,000 in the bank and you have no other assets. We don't give loans to people like you. Okay. And so Seema's like trying to muscle her way into getting a jumbo loan by saying, hey, you're a woman, I'm a woman, right? We know how it is. Like, what do bank loans have to do with feminism? This is garbage. Okay. Also, a side story, Charlotte's daughter. Okay, the actresses who are playing the teenage daughters, like the girl who's playing the adopted child from China, that woman is reportedly 30 years old. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. This daughter, it's like Gabrielle Carteris on 90210. Like, she walked on the show in the season premiere, the episode, like the series premiere, and you're like, that woman's 45 and she's got a well-funded 401k. Anyway, Charlotte's daughter, her storyline is that she's dating this hot ballet dancer, this guy, but their relationship is poly, and he also has a boyfriend. And so she's constantly fighting for time with him. And Charlotte's totally cool with this. Like, in what world? Please. And then Harry gets prostate cancer, and she's like losing her mind and like having this, like, again, prostate cancer, it's akin to skin cancer. It's treatable, whatever. Okay. Then we have a confrontation. Finally, some dramatic confrontation. Drama equals conflict. That's it. It's that simple of an equation. For drama to happen, you need conflict, which this series has far too little of. Carrie walks into her tiny kitchen in the morning, and Miranda's sitting there. She's eating a yogurt, and she's got half a banana, and she's got like a Mexican Coke, and Carrie literally opens her Smeg refrigerator, which is really the province of hipsters under 45. But Carrie's got one, and she goes, "Oh my God, are you eating my last yogurt? Are you eating my last banana? Are you drinking my last Mexican Coke?" First of all, who doesn't invite somebody to stay at their house, whether it's for an indeterminate amount of time or as a guest? When I have guests, my house is stocked. I ask my guests, "What would you like me to get?" I'm going to stock up on the basics. Special requests, please send them my way. What can I do to make your stay more comfortable? You know why? Because I want people to come back. I want them to have a good time, and I want them to feel at home. I would never do this to a best friend, no less. And by the way, a woman this wealthy would have a household staff who would have stocked that refrigerator, or God forbid, it's somehow empty. She would have sent the household staff down to the nearest Whole Foods. She would have door dashed it. She would have Uber Eats, like, get out. And then after this, and she tells Miranda, "Well, you got to go. You're a terrible house guest." Oh, sorry. Chekhov's table shows up. You know, Chekhov's gun, that rule. If you introduce a gun in the first act, it's got to go off by the third. Aiden's table, the table that Carrie's been mooning over this whole time, that got sold on first dibs. Well, Aiden bought it and it got delivered, and it's like a character, you know? Anyway, after this little confrontation with Miranda, who just meekly agrees, like, yeah, she's terrible. Not that Carrie's terrible, but that she's terrible. Carrie goes out and opens the door to her garden, where the hot, nice gardener is taking a break in what looks like sweltering heat. And she's standing up there imperiously at the top of her wrought iron spiral staircase. And she sees them and she yells, "Resume working." This goes to my theory that everybody involved in this show is horrible. And we're going to circle back to it in our moment of nirvana. The characters are horrible. I think the actors are horrible people, because SJP, again, has fused with Carrie, and she thinks Carrie is a wonderful, delightful person. For one of our most recent episodes, we quoted SJP saying Carrie is generous of time and spirit. She's a monster. She's a monster, okay? She would have chased these people away long ago. Everyone in the writer's room is a monster, and Michael Patrick King, the showrunner, is a monster, because they think these are ways in which one moves about the world in a civil, decent way.